A woman is more. She is a sun ray to flowers that bloom. Find her in God's hands. No longer silent. In God's hands. No longer silent.
Hello again, everybody. Hello to the NLS movement, as I like to call you guys. Welcome to another episode of No Longer Silent. As per usual, I'm your host, Navita Milton Riley. And on this forum, we bring you stories of women from all over the church who have gone through some rather sensitive topic, some rather sensitive issues that were meant to really destroy them. It was the plan of the enemy that they did not survive, but they did. And because they are not victims, but survivors, because they are victorious and they're triumphant, they are coming to share their stories with us. And we are grateful that we could have provided this safe space for them to talk. And so today, my guest is a very dear friend of mine. She attends the Florida Assembly in Fort Lauderdale. Her name is Sister Nicole Beharie, and a very beautiful and very passionate young lady about the gospel and about the words of God. And today she's on here to tell us a little bit about something that she too has struggled with. We all know that everybody has a story. She is here to share hers with us. Nicole, thank you so much for coming on No Longer Silent and being in this space with me. Before we get into it, tell us a little bit about how you got into the church, because I know that you were not born and raised in this church. So tell us a little bit about how you got into the church and just a little bit about yourself before we get into everything.
All right. Thank you, Navita, for that introduction. And again, my name is Nicole Beharie. I have been in the faith for quite a while. And I would say that it has been a journey. The process has not always been smooth, but by the grace of God, I am where I am. And I'm in the mindset that I'm currently in. And prior to coming into Mount Zion, I was attending a different Seventh-day Church of God. Matter of fact, I've been to several. I think we have been like a rolling stone when it comes to church. Churches, we've been all over the place. So most of the Church of God, if someone say I'm from here, I'm probably gonna say, oh, I've been there before. And so I was introduced to Mount Zion from YouTube. So this is prior to us start streaming now. This was back in 2014, early 2014. Wow. I was introduced to Mount Zion, and that's how I saw videos on YouTube. And one day, I think originally it was my sister, and she called me and showed me that, hey, here's a church, and it seems like, they practice the things that we knew growing up in our younger days. And so I said, okay. And that following Sabbath, we drove out to West Palm Beach. It was a far journey. It's the furthest I've ever driven. We went there, and that's how I got into Mount Zion. And from there, I stayed. I'm still here. I became a member. Kind of how I got to where I'm at, where it relates to Mount Zion. But prior to, I was not raised in Mount Zion. I've been in several other Church of God, but I have arrived here, and I believe I can call where I'm currently at home. And so I look to continue to serve God in righteousness moving forward.
Wonderful, wonderful. So to all of our YouTube listeners out there, here is a testimony of somebody who heard of us even before we started streaming, before there was a pandemic. And she's here calling the church her home. And we are happy for that. We're grateful that you found us and you are now a part of our family. So today, you came on here to share something that you went through as a young woman in the faith. Tell us about your story and tell us of how God was able to bring you out of that space.
Okay. So for this particular topic, it's on the topic of pornography and pornography, adult movies, however it may be named. And I'm just going to give a little background prior to how this became an issue for me. And growing up as a young Christian, there are always difficult things that we face and difficult things that we are afraid to talk about. And when we hear the term pornography, this particular topic is very sensitive. It's very uncomfortable to address. Matter of fact, among any young Christian, addressing sex is really a hard topic. They become so, kind of just moving off into a shell, and however they may feel. And so it's a very difficult topic. And so I hope that this can really help someone who may be struggling with this issue, struggling with this demon, I would say, because I do call it a demon. So prior to me getting access to this type of streaming, I remember as a young girl, I was living in Spanish Town at the time and living with my parents, my grandmother, and it's a big family of us. We live in a big family yard. And I remember my first time even seeing anything so outlandish and so graphic was when I was about 7 or 8. And my grandmother used to send me over to my uncle to give him something several times. And when I go over to his house to give him whatever she sends me with, and you would think as a grown man, a child coming to you, you would stop what you're doing. And especially if you know they are coming, you would stop what you're doing and turn it off and, even meet them at the door. Yeah. But instead, every time she sends me there, that's what he will be watching. And so, and especially if I'm there for an extended period of time, it still is on, and it doesn't budge, it doesn't faze him. And so that exposure started with my late uncle. That's how I first seen anything like that. And as a young child, you're like, and let me tell you the honest truth, it doesn't matter how young kids are, they experience these feelings, right? So even before puberty, they know that their body is feeling something. Yeah. And so at that time, that's where the exposure kind of came about from my late uncle. And growing up as a child, I was very involved kind of athletically and with my siblings and my cousins, and we were involved. And so for a while, that really didn't bother me. Like I saw that and I'm like, oh my God, but I wasn't inclined to do anything or to go adventure on that on my own. Which, mind you, separately, when I got to a certain age, of course, I became curious and so on. And so even in my younger time, things weren't as pure, I would say, as I would expect them to be. No, my struggle from that, when I was in high school, my first exposure or first exposure when I'm like at a sensible age, I believe was in high school. And we go through changes. And at that time, I could not control the changes that I was going through as a teenager in my body. And so that's why I know what these young people are going through, because it's natural. It's natural to feel sexually inclined. It's natural to yearn towards someone. These are natural feelings. And so at the time, I was afraid and ashamed to talk about it, to even mention to anyone that I'm feeling this type of way. And so to address that, that's where pornography came back in the picture. And I tell you the honest truth, I don't know when, I don't know how it started. It just came about, just popped back up. And I for a while, I would be so disgusted with myself, because even though I was a child, I'm still aware that this isn't right. This isn't what I should see. This is adult. And even though it's labeled adult movies or adult videos, these are still immoral. These are still profane for even adults to see. And so because of that, not being able to control the changes that are going on, I ended up into that space where I was exposed to those things, or I was viewing those things. And when I look at it, Navita, now in our time, access to these content is so accessible.
Oh, yeah.
And I know that this is something that a lot of young people face. You'll be alarmed how prominent it is among even Christian young people. And I think one of the main thing is that, you see, because we are sheltered, for lack of a better word, and we are, called to live a certain lifestyle now, as a alternative to the feeling, we ended up falling into this state where we are using pornography as a way to release ourselves. For me at that time, that became a struggle, that became an issue. And I would constantly pray and say, and talk to God and say, God, I'm undergoing this, and I know this isn't right. And every time I feel sexually inclined, my mind just go into this space where I feel like this is the right way to address it. Right. And so I wouldn't talk to anyone. I wouldn't tell anybody what's going on. That would just be the escape route. And mind you, this is high school. So I was exposed to a lot of things. And in my high school, I had a lot of things going on. I had students there, friends who they were exposed to fellatio, and this is something that they practice. And for those of you who don't know what that is oral sex that they would engage in on campus. And so going through this, and your peers telling you what they're doing and so on and so forth, and you're like, okay, and you can't do anything because you're a Christian. You're supposed to be different, right? And so different things that came in the picture also made it even worse. And so going from there, I still prayed about it. And when I got to about 11th grade, that's when it really got to a stop where I said, God, this isn't me. This isn't right. I know that you made me to feel this way. I know that these changes are natural, but to address it in this manner is not right. And this is why I know that, our conscience is real, because even after viewing such things, you feel bad afterward. You're like, oh my God, and so imagine a young child who has no guidance, and they just become addicted to this thing, and they're no longer thinking straight. And so that addiction can cause them to suffer many other things. And, during the 11th grade year, when I said, God, I'm putting a stop to this. This isn't what you require of me. This isn't what you want me to be doing, And so I prayed and I asked God about it. And I think that's the point in my Christian life where I become more serious about God. And when I saw where God was literally, I'm telling you the honest truth, literally helping me, where I would even fast more in school, when I'm at school, fast more, because I wanted to get rid of this. I wanted not to address my feelings in that manner. And I would not talk to anyone. I would not say anything, but I would resort to this. And so I talked to God about it, and praying through the process and whatever. And I just told myself that, listen, as a woman, this isn't right. Not that it is right for a male, but it's not right. And so from there, I kind of just made up my mind, and trust me, it was a hard thing, because the feeling didn't change. The feelings will not go away. And I want to say this, like, one of the reasons why I was a little uncomfortable in addressing this, I know that this may not be the voice that you would expect to hear in addressing this issue. And the problem is that, the things that we go through, we are ashamed to talk about them because we are afraid. This was something for me, afraid of how people would look at you afterward.
Oh, yes.
And this is something really big why a lot of people don't open up. And for me, this is something that I've faced where I said, you know what, I'm not talking about this. And honestly, right now is the first time I've been so publicly open about this issue that I've had.
Mhm.
And I got to the place where I said to myself, listen, this is something that you've experienced. This is something that it's in the past. You can't get rid of it. You know, you just have to move on from it. And so we've all have blunders. We've all had falls. We've all had errors. You
Mhm.
know, it's just that we have to own them and move on and strengthen somebody else from what we've experienced. And so, you know, I want to use this opportunity to say that whatever we've done, use them as stepping stones to get
Yes.
over future hurdles, right? Future things that we will face. And I'm blessing God. You know why? Because from that, God didn't allow me to become promiscuous. And
Yeah.
I'm telling you, there is a lot of promiscuity in the body of Christ as a result of pornography, as a result of these things, of this. So many things is birthed out of this. And that was just my experience and, you know, my curiosity and my changes that led me to be so vulnerable and open to, I would say, the adversary's tool. And
Mhm.
so that was my experience. And like I said, it wasn't hard to break that, especially when, you know, you feel like that is helping you address your feelings. So yeah, that was my experience. And so every teenager that I talk to, and sometimes I can know when they're facing that issue. They may not
Mhm.
say it, but previously, because I know how, you know, the reactions would be, I can tell. And so to the young, I want to first tell you that any feeling that you have inside of you, any sexual feeling, that is designed by God. You are designed to have sexual feelings. Don't be embarrassed. Don't feel like you're odd. Don't feel like, whoa, what is this going on? You're designed to. Now, the problem now is, how do we address these things? How do we give help to young people who don't know what to do? And even with this, we have the problem of masturbation. We have the
Yes.
different things, like I said, different things that
Yes.
come out of this one thing. And so it's not just a one thing you just look in and whatever, but there's so many things that come out of it. And so when the body becomes concupiscence or lustful, the desires is not to look into that direction for an alternative. That's not an alternative. Pornography is not an alternative. You know, it's immoral. It's wrong. And it's just as preaching against fornication. If
Yeah.
you should not eat with a fornicator, you should not be looking at two people fornicating. That's just the truth. You know, you should not be looking at these things. So I remember there's a particular scripture in Psalms 101, verse 3, where
Mhm.
David says that I will set no wicked thing before mine eyes.
Yes.
And that's a wicked thing. And let me tell you, from that, Navita, I struggled so much. And the reason why I called it a demon earlier on, because from that, I have taken on sexual demons. And sometimes the fight is so great that I can physically, when I'm laying down in my bed, sometimes sleeping, physically feel these demons just near me, caressing my body. And I'm like, God, you've delivered me from, you know, actually viewing these things. And here it is, no, as a result, I have taken on these things that are no, bringing a greater struggle for me. And so I'm saying that make it up in your mind to stop it, because there's a lot of things that can come out of it. And I am fighting this fight. And I know that, you know, I'm not going to blame, just going to say, you know, I was exposed at an early age, but the ultimate decision too relies on you. What are you going to do? You know, and
Yes.
sometimes I feel so sorrowful regarding our young, because some of us don't know what to do. And I'm older now. I'm more mature now. The person then, is not the same person speaking to you right now. And so with maturity, we get better at handling our emotions. And so, it is a fight. It is a struggle. And for me, I thought, like I said to you, I thought it wasn't a story. I just thought it was an experience, but it is a story. This is something that a lot of people are facing. We have to give young people alternatives and right way to handle it. I don't know. I know sometimes, I've heard it, when you feel these feelings, to take a shower and to whatever it is, maybe. I've never tried those. I don't know if it works, to be honest with you. I don't know if it works. But if we can provide good support where we're real, we're genuine, we're letting them know that these struggles are real. Viewing pornography, it's real, and you're not the only one who's going through it. You're not the only one who have gone through it, right? And so this is something that we have to empower people to know, that this is like a drug. It's like a drug. Once you get into it, it becomes so addictive, and it gets harder to stop. And so I want to encourage especially our young people, that know that this isn't the way that you want to go. This isn't what God has for you. He says that our body is a temple, his temple, where he should dwell, and more so if the Spirit of God is dwelling in you.
Yes.
Right? That's combating what is acceptable. And so I want to empower us, that take it from someone who have experienced this. And I was ashamed to talk about it, because it's not something desirable. It's something that put a stain on your character. But I want to say to us that, what you've gone through doesn't define who you are. Your past does not define who you are. And many have fallen into this track. Many have failed. It's just that some of us, we don't acknowledge it. Many have failed before, it's time for them to do it the right way, or to do the right thing. And so we have to address these things and let it be known that, it's a struggle, it's a fight, but we can overcome them.
Nicole, I know that this is an audio platform and I shouldn't be lost for words, but I find myself being lost for words. I want to commend you for your strength. I know that took a great amount of strength to come on here and share that, because I've been in the church all my life and I've never heard anybody speak openly about pornography. But I know of so many of our young people who struggle with that. And as you said, it leads to masturbation. And I'm not saying that this is a conversation for all the audiences in the church, but I do believe that this is something that we need to have the uncomfortable conversations about, because this is what our young people are going through. And I want to really thank you for the bravery that it took to come on here and share your experience and your story about how you struggled and how God was able to help you and is still helping you. Because I feel like these issues are not something that, it's not like a physical disease that you get healed from. It's something that you have to consistently talk to God about and seek God about and be prayerful about, because relapse is something that you can fall into at any time, know. And I personally know of people in the church who have struggled with this and they're not willing to come out and talk about it, because yes, you feel guilty, you feel nasty, but I am grateful that you came on here today and you spoke about it, because I know that this is going to help somebody. I know that this is going to reach somebody. And, while you were talking and while I was listening to you, you spoke about how prayer and just having that relationship with God really helped you and pulled you out of some dark places sometimes. And I found this little poem. I always read a little poem at the end as I try to close out the podcast. And it says, It's titled A Woman in Prayer. And it says, when a woman seeks God, she lays her soul bare. Like a tree in autumn is a woman in prayer. Through Jesus, she makes her supplication to him, the Father of all creation, to him who divided darkness and light, to him who gave sparrow flight. Attentively he listens. God knows she's sincere. And if she cannot speak, he interprets her tear. When a woman seeks God, there's a trembling of the earth, hope and healing, a miracle at birth. She breathes into a soul that which it lacks, then praises him for his mighty acts. When a woman seeks God, she transforms the air. More precious than a ruby is a woman in prayer. And I believe that that is you, because you really seek God and you're still seeking God about this. And I want to encourage you to continue to seek God, because he has the power. It says that he divided day from night, and while you were speaking, one of the scriptures that came to my mind is that scripture that says, where the Spirit of God is, then there is liberty, there is freedom. And I believe that we are supposed to be free when we have the Spirit of God living within us, but we have to fight for that freedom. It doesn't just fall from the sky. We have to fight for it. So my friend, my sister in Christ, continue to fight the good fight. Thank you so much for sharing your story. It was a pleasure having you on No Longer Silent about such a sensitive topic. To all of our listeners out there, thank you for your continued support. Thank you for sharing, for telling a friend, for sometimes even reaching out to me and telling me of how the story inspired you. And I hope that whomever is out there struggling with this demon, as she calls it, you know that there is hope and that you can overcome, just like Nicole did. Thank you for joining me. Until next time, this is Nevita Milton Riley saying, God bless you.
No longer silent.